5 minutes. In this video, I'm going to cover the Business Context Plus, or BC Plus, enhanced visibility that we're offering within the nOps platform. I'm in the Business Context Cost Analysis page, and you'll notice that several new items now exist, and they have the BC Plus badge, which indicates that they are a specific and exclusive addition into the Business Context Plus package. I can use these menu options the same way that I do with the cost analysis. I just have more of them. I can categorize by all these different areas, and that includes something like the instance family or perhaps cluster ARN. And what this is going to do is group everything by cluster ARN. Now, not everything is in a cluster, and you'll notice that there's this large cluster ARN grouping. So to handle that, what I'm going to do, just for an example, is scroll down, show my container cost area, and where it says cluster ARN, open that up. I'm going to select no cluster ARN, and then actually change the include to exclude and apply that. What that's doing now is isolating just those resources that live within these clusters. I'm going to scroll down and see that I've got 4. I can see their associative costs here, and I can further filter down by clicking on it or setting in the menu option here. So now I'm looking at the nOps prod cluster, and now that I have that isolated, I'm going to scroll down the options and I'm going to select namespace. This is going to allow you the next level of visibility. And as my coworker and friend Jeff likes to say, and use it as the analogy, similar to what you have currently today is like looking at a forest. You can get an idea of the size and the space, and you can see some of the trees, but for the most part, it's a black box. With the nOps tool, it just gives light and magnification to that so that you're able to look at each individual leaf. And that's what we're doing here when it comes to containers. So I'm looking at all of the namespaces here, and I'll pick on celery. I'm going to click that to set the option here as well. And now, again, that I'm isolating that, I'm going to go through and I'm going to scroll back down. This time, I'm going to look at the individual pods. What this is doing is showing me all of the celery pods that are in the celery namespace in the nOps prod cluster. I can see what each pod is costing me in proportion to the overall spend of the cluster, or the overall cost of the cluster, I should say. Now, if you want to take that one step further, we can take this information and we can use this in our cost allocation showbacks. This is going to allow me to look at something like our pod distribution. And when I go in and I look and I click into the unallocated, I'll be able to go through and do the same thing, set my filters and grab those costs and move them in. Now, I've actually already done that, and I'll show you. If I go back into my pod distribution list and I look at my group 1, these are all relating to my celery pods. And now you can see that I've pulled in all of the instances here, and now I can attribute that $3,100 in overall spend to this particular showback value. When this comes back into play with the cost analysis, you can then take this and look at it through that lens by pulling in whatever showback you wish to by default view, and then again pod distribution. And now when I'm looking at this cost, I can see my group 1, and I can see what makes up this $3,117. So there's a lot of power with being able to get to that level of granularity and isolate pod cost, namespace cost, label cost, container cost, etc. Into individual groups, so that you're able to properly attribute all of that information into a really robust showback value. And then the last piece that I want to talk about is our enhanced cluster efficiency. And that does require the agent for Business Context Plus to be installed. It's very simple through a Helm chart, but I just want to show you in our dashboard, the nOps prod cluster, we've got our cluster efficiency information here. So what we've done is we've gained insight through that agent. We've looked at the Cur data and we've kind of paired everything all together. And now we can see the overall cost of this cluster. But more importantly, we see the actual usage of the cluster. So you can see for CPU and RAM, and then the attributed cost of the actual usage against the requests. And so what you can see is, the request against the actual usage, you may not actually be scheduling as many pods onto a node as you could, and that might require more nodes than you need within a cluster. And that's where we came up with the estimated waste. You can see the difference between what's available in the overall cluster capacity against what's actually being used. So what this tells us is that because of the requests being so high against the actual usage, quite frankly, we're requesting too much and we probably don't need to. This is going to be a tie-in to our container right sizing, which will also be a component of the BC Plus suite, and I'll have a follow-up video for that as well. I hope you found this insightful, and have a great day.